Okay, so in this video, we're looking at problem number 39. So 39 tells us it's a mathematical connection. It's kind of looking, when I look at this, it's a triangle, so it's connecting, I guess, geometry to algebra. So it's connecting the two things. So that's what it means by mathematical connection. Anyway, you consider the triangle shown. We have three sides of a triangle. Of course, triangle has three sides. We have h, 13, 13 and 10. So write a function, this is part A, write a function that represents the perimeter of the triangle. So a function is essentially something that has an input and an output. Go watch the functions video where I introduce what a function is if you still kind of shaky on what a function is, and give yourself some time before you can truly understand it. So a function is going to have an input. So this is P represents the perimeter. The perimeter is going to have an input of H, and then based on this input, we're going to have a perimeter. So let me explain what that means. So H plus 13 plus 10, which is basically P of H is equal to H plus 23. Okay, what is this function essentially? So this is the perimeter function, and the perimeter function is dependent, so it's a dependent variable, of course. It's dependent on this independent variable h, which represents the height of this, or not the height, but the length of this side. And essentially what we're seeing here is we're seeing this function that based on the given length, we're going to have a different perimeter. So that's what it is, essentially. We have an input of h and an output of p, so p of h, which is basically, just to say it one more time, we have an input of h, which is representative of the independent variable, and we have an output of p of h, which is the perimeter. Based on this input, we're going to have different perimeters. But each cannot be anything. Like, for example, can h be a -1? No. Can we have a negative length of a triangle? Have you seen that before? No, that breaks the laws of physics, right? So that doesn't work. But this is just a general function. This isn't specifying the domain or anything, but this is just a general function. Just the general function. Okay, let's look at part B. Part B says identify the dependent variable. We actually already did that. So independent. The independent variable is going to be the h value, which is h, which is the length of side 3, I guess you could say. Length of side 3, I don't know, or you can just say length of the last side, or the leftward side, I don't know. I mean, that depends on how you position it, but length of side is good. Length of side of triangle. So this is B. What we have, the dependent variable. The dependent variable is, of course, the output, which is in this case the perimeter. So variable is P of H, or the perimeter. I guess you could do P. Some people just do P instead of P of H. That's also fine, but I'll just do P of H, which is the perimeter. So this represents the perimeter. Actually, I think I'll just do P. P is better because P of H essentially is telling you that you have an input, right? P of H, based on what you put, you're going to have an output. So P is the dependent variable, which is the perimeter of the triangle. That's it. Let's look at part C. C is the interesting one. Describe the domain and range of the function. When they say describe, I think what they mean is actually state it, but you can also describe it if you wanted to. So the domain, I'm going to first do this before I read the hint. So domain is because we cannot answer this one without any hint, the height of the third side of triangle. And that's the domain, the heights, the possible heights, the heights of side of triangle. But then the range, domain is the set of heights of the triangle, the range is going to be the perimeters of the triangle. The perimeters of the triangle. Now let's actually define the range. Now we can use the hint. You might already know this, but this hint is going to help us solve this problem, as hints should help, as hints should do. They should help us. So the hint, the sum of the lengths of any two sides of a triangle is greater than the length of the remaining side. How does that help us? Well, we have three sides. That means h is one of the sides. H is the third side. The summation of 13 plus 10 is the sum of the two sides. The sum of any two sides should be greater than the length of the remaining side. So this should be greater than h. So I didn't say it's greater than or equal to, it should be just greater. So this is what we have. So h has to be less than, or 23 has to be greater than h. This is our condition. Now, this actually just literally tells you the domain. This is the domain. So that's a kind of an interesting thing here. We just literally got the domain. H has to be less than 23. But there's another restriction that I mentioned earlier, so this is not our answer. And I need some space on the left because h has to be less than 23, but can it just keep on being less than 23? No, it has to be less than 23. It has to be less than 23, but it has to be greater than 0 as well, because it can't be 0, because that also breaks the laws of, it doesn't really break it. It just, we have no triangle. But if we have negative, it's going to break the laws of physics, which we can't do. So 0 less than h less than 23. This just makes sense, right? Don't think about it in physics terms. It just makes sense. You can't have a negative length. So this is our domain. This is we can box in, and then the range is going to be the set of perimeters. Now the perimeters, it can be anything from 23. So 23. And it can actually, well, it won't be 0 because we won't have a triangle, but so it's not going to equal 23, but it can be from 23 to, if we have 23 plus, if we have 23 as the height, in this case, we would have 23 plus 23, not the height, but the length of h. 23 plus 23 is going to be 46, right? So 46 less than 46, essentially. This is the possible range. It can't be equal to 23 because then we wouldn't have a triangle if we have h is 23, or the perimeter is 23, because then we have h being 0, which doesn't make sense. It's not going to be a triangle. And then 46, it can't be equal to 46 because in that case then h is 23, which it cannot be 23. So that's another thing. This is the possible perimeters. These are the possible perimeters for this triangle, which represents the range, the perimeters of the triangle. We wrote both of that. So this is problem number 39. I hope you found this video helpful. This was an interesting one. I think I like this one. It involved a lot of things like domain, range, dependent variable, writing a function, and it's an actual example that makes sense. So hope you found this video helpful.